We live in a society that tells us who to be, what to do, and how to behave. And if you don't fit in that box, you don't belong. Well, I say we challenge that because I believe that we were created to be unique individuals with a unique purpose. We all have something different to bring to the table, and we can all learn from each other if we're just willing to take the time to listen. Welcome to the Unavoidable podcast, where true connection happens when we stop avoiding the hard stuff. I'm your host, Caitlin Childs. Pull up a seat and let's see what we can learn from today's guest. Welcome back to the podcast. Thank y'all for joining us. I'm here today with my father-in-law, Frank Childs. And we have been talking this season about strengths and weaknesses. So are you excited to be on my podcast?
I am. I just saw a weakness of yours. It took you forever to get in your chair to get positioned. Maybe that's your strength, though.
My mom always called me the pokey little puppy growing up, so I'm pretty sure. Yeah, that's a weakness that I passed on to my son. I'm getting a taste of it for myself now. It's not fun as a mother, but so we are sitting here in the podcast studio that is my office that actually used to be your dad's like man cave.
That's right.
So this would not be possible if you had not allowed me to turn this into my office. So
well, it needs to be used.
I really appreciate it because lots of people are getting a benefit from this podcast now that wouldn't be able to without this. So I really appreciate it.
Just kind of tells you Dad built this just for him, and now it's being shared all over.
Yeah, that's kind of crazy.
So,
I bet he never thought.
Never thought it. And you've improved it tremendously.
Well, thank you.
Looks a whole lot better.
Less rat poop.
There's just a picture missing.
Oh.
There was a nice picture. It was a nice carpet picture of little puppy dogs shooting pool. Yeah. And Caitlin didn't like that picture.
I did like that picture so much.
But she said it wouldn't fit in her room.
That I decided that you needed that picture.
And so you made me a blanket.
I made you a blanket out of it. You're welcome.
Okay, thank you.
But I have this nice gallery wall.
It's an improvement over the little... But the little weenie dog on the carpet, he was cute.
It's not a weenie dog. It's a basset hound.
Well, the basset hound looks really nice. Well, okay. Anyway.
Well, this season, like I said, we're talking about strengths and weaknesses. And so one of your strengths that I have noticed over the years is that you are very understanding and very gracious with people. And I didn't tell you this before the podcast because I didn't want you to think too hard about it. But that is one thing that I have noticed because, I mean, even being a dumb teenager, like mistakes that I've made, you were always willing to sit down with me and get my side of the story and understand things and come from a place of trying to build a bridge rather than, coming at it with an iron fist.
Well, and I appreciate that. It's something that God just has to give you a portion. I believe He gives you a portion, then you have to build on it. Mm-hmm. I always believe, and I probably made mistakes with my children, but I always thought you needed both sides of the story. Mm-hmm. As much as you love your kids, and you would do anything for them, and they're always going to be number one.
Yeah.
But when there's a situation come, you need to get the whole story. Mm-hmm. And I felt like by doing that over the years, and like I said, you could probably ask my kids and they can probably tell you where I wasn't very gracious at all. But that's what I try to do. But I think that was a weakness that probably turned into a strength.
Really?
And I'm not there yet. I don't think I'm there yet, but I just try to I'm thinking how I approach things is, all right, if God was sitting here right now beside me, and I was having a problem, how would He address it? Yeah. And I don't think He's not going to point His finger at me.
Yeah.
He's not going to yell and scream at me. A lot of people think God's just ready to put the whip on them. He's not that way at all. He's gracious. He's wanting to hear the whole story, mm-hmm. and then He wants to help you fix it. Now, mm-hmm. like I said, help you fix it. He's not fixing it.
Yeah.
He's going to give you the tools to fix it.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people, they just want, when they have a problem, they want God to fix it. But a lot of times when you grow, mm-hmm. and if you want your strength to grow, then you have to allow God to help you get through it.
Yeah. And I've also noticed that he tends to, yes, discipline the action, but then he a lot of times looks at your intention.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas it's like your action, yeah, that may not have been cool, but your intention behind it was good. So let me walk you through how maybe we can shift that intention
Right.
into like
Mm-hmm.
utilizing it in a better way. And so, yeah, I think that's spot on. And I think that you do a good job of representing him in that way
Well, thank you.
because you've always been very understanding with me in the 15 years that I've known you. And I think that that's a big strength of yours.
15 years.
15 years?
Can I share one story?
Yes.
I have to share this. We were getting lifeguard classes, and the lifeguard came to our house, and she was teaching us. Well, we took a little
It
lunch
was a
break.
he.
It was a he.
It was Daniel.
Oh, it was a he.
Yeah.
So anyway, he decided let's take a little lunch break. So Caitlin, she's young and she's there, so she sits on the counter. I guess we ate pizza or something.
Oh, no.
I don't know. All of a sudden, we're all just sitting around talking, and we look up, and sitting on my counter, sound asleep, was Caitlin. That had to be the most uncomfortable position. She's sitting there with the cabinet was your pillow,
Uh-huh.
and she was sound asleep.
They worked us hard that
They
day.
did. We swim a
I
lot.
was so tired. I'm not used to that much physical exercise. Oh, gracious. Yes, that's a strength of mine is being able to rest wherever I am.
Well, you can do it. If you can sleep on the top of a kitchen counter with your head on a
Oh,
cabinet, you can sleep anywhere.
I don't know that I could do that today in my 30s, but as a teenager, yeah, I definitely could.
Mm.
So, but I do think that in those 15 years, it has been 15 years.
Wow.
I know that I've seen you be met with a lot of different situations that maybe were not ideal. And every time I watched you handle them, it was always with a portion of grace and understanding and trying to get both sides of the story. And I think that that's something that you have also passed down to Josh.
Good.
Because in our marriage, like he never just tries to be right. He always tries to understand as best he can and not take sides and, try to be combative in any way. So I think that he got that from you. And I appreciate that.
Well, you're welcome. And I know sometimes now Bridget, she might think a little different on my grace toward her sometimes. When you're talking though, it made me realize I remember when there were certain situations, whether it was with you or somebody else, I might be mad, super mad, or not feeling any grace at all. But again, just kind of going in prayer and saying, all right, God, how do you want me to handle this? How can I be an assistant? And so a lot of times where you thought I may have just had it automatically, it may be before I came to talk to you, or whether I was driving a car or maybe just walking, it was, all right, God, what do you want me to say?
Yeah.
And how do you want me
So it was a hard-earned strength, would
Yeah,
you say?
I
Because you
think
said something earlier about it was like a weakness turned into a strength. What did you mean by that?
because I really, when I was younger, real young,
Uh-huh.
um, I could lose my temper quickly. I really could.
Really?
I could, and you can ask Josh. I have lost my temper quickly, but I think where it was, the people you're closest to are going to see you. They're going to know
Yeah.
you. I was reading in Matthew today where Jesus goes back to Nazareth, and the people knew him. They said, "Isn't this the carpenter's son? He has brothers and sisters and Mary," and they didn't receive Jesus well,
Right.
because they saw him grow up. Not that Jesus was weak by any means, but they saw all his childhood issues, all his young adult issues. They may have saw him when he was helping his father. Maybe he hit the hammer, may have hit his finger, and he may have threw the hammer. I don't know.
Yeah.
He was still man, so he still hurt. And so he wasn't received well. So I think, like with Bridget, as with her so close to me, she sees everything more, where the further out I get away from people, like at church, they don't see me at the house. They
Mhm.
see me as that pastor.
Yeah.
And so therefore they may receive better, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I think, as much as I want to say, yeah, I walk in grace 24/7, I really can't say that because there are some days
Yeah.
that maybe I'm not that gracious,
Yeah.
Uh, but I just know with God's help, when like yesterday we were driving down the road and this truck came into our lane and just pushed us kind of out of the road. I had to slow down, and it's like your flesh wants to blow your horn or
Mhm.
say something, let him know you're aggravated with him. And at that time, I just felt, no, I don't want to do that to him.
Yeah.
I don't want, I don't know what his circumstance was.
Right.
So I just kind of graciously let him take the lane, and I just backed off and then went around him.
Yeah. So I can kind of relate to that, what you said, like with the whole TikTok situation too, because God had called me to that. And I was just getting on there to share what he was teaching me. And I found that people were really, really receptive to it on TikTok. Whereas in my personal life, people may not have been as receptive to what I was saying because they're like, oh, this is coming from Caitlin,
Mm-hmm.
and they may have known my struggles and been like, girl, hush.
Yep.
Whereas on TikTok, they didn't have that preconceived notion of who I was and like push that on me. Instead, it was more so like
Mm-hmm.
they just got a fresh slate. And
Yep.
so I do think that that's a big part of whether people are able to spot your gifts or not,
Mm-hmm.
whether they have seen you in your before that gift was come to fruition or not.
Yeah. Well, you're very relatable though. You just when I watch your TikTok, it's you're us.
Mm,
You're not someone. You're just
girl next
you're
door.
you're like,
Yeah.
hey, I'm growing with God just like everybody else is, and
Yeah.
this is and the what makes it special for you is you share
Hmm.
what you're growing into.
Yeah.
You're saying, hey, this is I had a problem with this today, but God shared, and there's so many people out there that may have the same issues.
Yeah.
And you just come across like you're not saying you're the problem. You're saying we all have issues, but
Yeah.
this is what God can do for my issues. And I
Right.
think that's what makes your TikTok so good is you just share and
Yeah.
you're like, hey, I'm one of y'all, but this is
Yeah.
what God told me.
Well, I've noticed that the times that I get in trouble is when I try to go too much into like, oh, I'm a teacher now. Like I have to take myself seriously because
Hmm.
people are counting on me and then it becomes boring because I'm not relating to them anymore like you said. And so I have to watch myself with that of staying in my gift and not letting
Hmm.
those situations draw me out
Right.
of it. So have you ever had a situation where it was like you're tempted to be drawn out of that graciousness and that understanding and you're tempted to pull away from that part of you even if your intentions are good, just maybe because of loyalty to someone, like that would be the case for me, I think. If I was like super loyal to someone and they had a argument with somebody else, I would want to be like not so gracious towards that other person because I'm loyal to this person.
Yeah, again, and I do. I find, but again, before I act,
Yeah.
I still try to think, all right, God, this is you're here. What would you do?
Yeah.
How do you handle this? Because we're so quick, like our children especially. You're quick to defend them. You
Mhm.
you really are.
Yeah.
That's your child.
Yeah.
You love that child more than anybody else on this earth.
Yeah.
You love. I mean, it's just it's just a great love, and so. But again, like I said earlier, you got to kind of step back.
Yeah.
All right, yeah, I know Sally hit you, but tell me the whole thing because you may find out that you said something wrong to Sally,
Yeah.
which made her react,
Yeah.
and so.
I mean, we had that situation with Kellen recently where he was struggling in school. And I was like, do I need to pull him out? Do I need
Mm,
to like, because his confidence was just
mhm,
rock bottom. He felt like he couldn't do anything, like he didn't have any friends. And I was just really struggling with that. But when I found out the root of it, I was like, oh, this is actually on me. this is actually a lack of me pouring into my son to the point where he has confidence. And so once I was able to correct that, then
Mhm.
it the whole situation resolved itself. But it really did fall back on me more so than other people.
Yeah.
So
I was thinking when you were saying that, we were talking about grace and our strengths. One thing that sometimes you may be very gracious to somebody, and somebody else that knows you or seeing from the outside may think it that you're not that person, that strength,
mhm,
and they want to think, "Oh, you're just being a pushover." But one thing I always say, if someone's taking advantage of me, that's between them and God.
mm,
If I'm being gracious and they're giving me a snow job, that's between them and God. I
yeah,
can only be what I feel like God's called me to be. But like I said, I miss it sometimes.
yeah,
But like I said, ask my kids. They can probably tell you a whole lot of stories. So,
yeah.
especially Bridget. So she can tell you that.
Well, we're not all operating in our strengths 100% of the
No.
time, but I do. It definitely sounds like you pull from your relationship with God to feed that strength. Would you say that's accurate?
I try to pull everything. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm out there working today, out in clearing some of the roads in the woods, and I bet you I said it 20 or 30 times. God, give me direction.
Mhm.
God, before I get the chainsaw out, give me direction. Give me direction.
Yeah.
I try to invite him in all the time.
Yeah.
Now, sometimes I may not listen. That's when I get scratched up or hurt. But I
Yeah.
think I do. I think that's important with everybody. You know, you don't have to just get on your hands and knees and pray, but you need to have God invited in you need to have that relationship that while you're driving, walking, eating, God, you got to have the relationship that He's right there with you.
Mhm.
And so when a crisis does comes up, you can say, "All right, God, what I need to do."
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
anyway,
There have been many times in my life where I had not a clue what I was gonna do, and then when I asked him, he just gave it to me, but he gives instruction in a way where we still feel like we have a little bit of pull in the
mm-hmm,
we have a little bit of skin in the game too, because then we get to choose whether we listen or not. He's not like demanding
mm-mm,
and
mm-mm,
any of that. It's just more so like, hey, here's my advice to you, here's my guidance to you. You
mm-hmm,
take it or leave it. And we have that choice.
right.
So
And so if we're not, I guess what I'm trying to say is we're talking about weaknesses too.
mhm,
I think that can be all our weaknesses is when we're not intentionally trying to listen to God. That can be a weakness.
mhm,
But at the same time, when you do listen to him, that weakness can be turned into a strength.
mm,
And I think that's what we have to do. We have to, because we are weak. Without God, we're nothing.
yeah,
And so you have to rely on him. And like you said earlier, we want our skin is in the game. He wants us to be in the game.
yeah,
He don't want to just give you the answer, like I said earlier,
yeah,
and just say, go do it. He wants, well, I guess he does say, go do it. He wants to help you do the job. So
yeah.
we do have skin in the game, like you said. We
Well,
do.
he's kinda like a coach, and we're
Hmm.
the players on the
Hmm.
field. Like, he's given us the instruction, he's given us the plays. He said, "Hey, you wanna win the game, here's how you do
Hmm.
it," kinda thing, the strategy, but it's up to us to execute that.
That's right. We have to be the. Someone asked me just a couple of weeks ago in church. It just brought this to my mind. They asked a question about allowing people. How far do you allow people to, as a leader, to go without being over them? And I said I kind of looked at it as like with an animal with a rope. You constantly want to add to that rope. You don't want to
Mhm.
keep it tight. You want to keep adding
Yeah,
so they can experience the freedom,
right.
and I think that's how God does with us. He's wants you to experience it, but at the same time, he has that grace and like, okay, now if you have a struggle,
Yeah,
call me. I'm
yeah,
right here. But at the same time, he wants you to say, you know what, I think I can do this. And
yeah.
and so, but so that's anyway, that was brought up. I
That's
just
that's kind of how he explained it to me, and my because my background is more so like structured, I guess you could say,
mm,
like very much heavy rule based. And that was kind of how I always perceived the gospel. It's like, here's your list of rules to follow.
Mhm.
And so I was okay with that and I was obedient to that, but I never understood that he wanted more for me. And
Mm.
so when I finally realized, like, oh no, he actually wants good things for my life. He actually wants me to have fun and not feel like I'm just in a cage. And I was walking with the dogs one day down the trails in the woods, and they were just kind of near me, you know,
Mhm.
and they stayed near me, but they weren't on a leash. They weren't tethered to me in any way. But he said, "Do you see what's happening with your dogs? They want to be near you, and if they get too far off the path, you call them and they can come to you." He said, "That's what I'm doing with you. If you get too far off the path, I'll let you know.
Mhm.
And it's up to you to listen to me, but I'm not sitting here trying to like hold you right next to me on a leash. You got to do what I say." And I just had never experienced that
Mhm.
before then.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people older than you and maybe even older than me, they struggle with that because they do. They
Mhm.
think that God is this serious all the time person, but if we laugh, who gave us the laughter? He
Mhm.
did.
Yeah.
What does this Bible say? The joy of the Lord is my strength. I think God is a very joyous God.
Yeah.
Uh, does we disappoint him? Sure.
Yeah.
Our kids disappoint us, but at the same time, our kids may disappoint us in one moment, and one moment later, we're just so happy for them.
Yeah.
We're laughing in with them and everything. I think that's how God is with us.
Yeah.
So when you, like you say, when we're walking with God, it can be a joyous time because that's who
Yeah.
He is. I
And
think
our disappointments in our children never determine our love for them.
no,
And it's the same thing with him. Yeah, he may be disappointed from time to time in the actions that you've chosen, but he's not disappointed in you as a person. Like
right.
he's still loves you and just wants to move forward in that.
Mhm. This may be off the subject, but just like um, God's love is the
Mhm.
same yesterday, today, and forever. And I know a lot of people they try to earn God's love. Well,
Yeah.
if I say my prayers, I do this, read my Bible, God's going to love me more. No, He loves you the same.
Yeah.
It's that relationship that you have. What happens is you love Him more.
Mhm.
You start saying, wow, God is a good father.
Right.
In fact, I've even started in when I pray, especially with people, I first start thinking about how good of a father he is.
Yeah.
And I don't know, that helps.
It does. It absolutely does. You know that even if you didn't have a good father on this earth, you know what a good father looks like. Even if, you know, it was the opposite of your dad, you still know what a good father looks like because you've seen it modeled somewhere.
Mhm.
And so being able to pull from that example and be like, what would a good father do? Oh, that's what God's going to do. And even if I don't understand it, like a good father is still going to do what's in my best interests, even if I don't understand it.
Mhm.
So there's a lot to that. And I'm glad that you pointed it out that our strengths do come from Him. And so if we want to grow in those areas, we really need to grow in Him in order to find that.
Yep.
So,
I believe that.
yep. Well, I appreciate you coming on here. We're going to do 2 more episodes with you.
Okay.
So you're just along for the ride, aren't you?
I'm here for the ride or here
Okay.
for the sitting down.
Well, y'all come along with us and join us for the next few episodes as Mr. Frank gives us even more wisdom for your daily walk. If you enjoyed today's episode and you want to connect further, you can head over to yourfriendcaitlin.com. That's yourfriend, CAITLIN.com. There you can find all of my social media links, get updated on what's new, and even check out some of my books that can help you learn even further. Check back with us next time. See you then.